Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Detour Live. As always, joined by Johnny Trevorrow, Scotty McGrory, and a man who's out of Shawshank, Matty White. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Good, thanks, Jones. You just did 1 week in isolation and back at home now. And I reckon, given 48 hours, I'll probably be gagging to go to the Vuelta, I reckon.
I was going to say.
How was that trip, mate? Like when I spoke with you, you were just jumping on the bus and you had to go the team bus. How many 1,000 kilometres did you have to travel from Italy?
Yeah, for myself, it was 2,700 k, and 2,000 of it was in the bus. We had two bus drivers, and they did like 19 hours on the trot, just like 3-hour shifts, and then swap. Yeah. And it was a long trip from southern Italy to Girona. Then I spent the night in Girona, and then drove another 600k home the morning after. So it was a long trip, and sort of the way for us it finished wasn't a good way, and so much left to think what could have been.
Yeah, terrible.
Whitey, with Dan mentioning Shawshank, I'm guessing it wasn't like Andy Dufresne. You didn't have to crawl through 500 yards of a sewage pipe to get out of isolation, did you?
No, we just had to download a lot of movies on Netflix, and then sleep a fair bit of the way as well. We had an early morning, and we got in at 1 o'clock at night. So no, it was a better ending than Shawshank. And everyone got to go back to close to their home environment, and depending if they lived alone or they lived with families, had to spend a week in isolation. Except for our Italian staff, so the laws obviously are different here in Spain to Italy. So our Italians had to spend, or the ones who had close contact, they had to spend 10 days in isolation, and the ones who were COVID positive, they have been retested now. And actually, Simon Yates left to go home yesterday. So we've got a couple still in isolation in Italy, but the rest are all back home now.
I see that Gaviria has tested positive again, so that's a scary thing, as it was positive earlier in the year in the Middle East.
Yeah, well, the scary thing there, John, is look, the virus is something that's still getting worked out, the details of how it's affecting people. But our doctors were telling us that if you got a bad degree of the virus, that you would build up an immune system and you wouldn't catch it again. But if you had a lighter version with no symptoms, that you were still vulnerable to catching the virus again. And poor old Gaviria spent 1 month in and out of hospital in February with COVID, and then he's contracted the virus again mid-Giro. So, and I saw yesterday that Ricchesi, his roommate, started the stage and pulled out, and they're doing another wave of tests with everyone who's left at the Giro over the next 3 days as well. So they're on full alert there, but it's a price that people are paying to put on major sporting events throughout a pandemic.
Now, how did you go, Whitey, that week in isolation in terms? Did you go through all 5 stages of grief? Because I know how much the Giro means to you. I know how much preparation goes into a race like that. Did you go through anger, emotion? Like, it would have been a bit of a roller coaster for you.
It definitely was, but I still can't help myself to watch the Giro of the afternoon. I'd get through the morning. I'd wake up a bit angry, and I don't know what all the phases are actually, Jonesy, but I know that I was pretty angry and disappointed. But that would only reignite of the afternoon when I couldn't help myself to put the Giro on the television. So look, it was definitely one gone begging for us. I think the team came in very well prepared. We can see that the numbers that those guys are riding are not even as high as what they were riding at Tirreno. But it is what it is. We can't look backwards, and there's some real positives for us to take out of the Giro, and we'll definitely be back there to try to win that elusive prize in 2021.
Good ride of young Ben O'Connell last night, mate. Or last night for us, yesterday for you. He looked like he was going to win it for a while there. He looked stronger than Tratnik, but I think he sucked him a bit and hit him at the top of the last climb. But it was a good ride.
Yeah, it was. I think the effort that Ben made to get across to him, that was what probably it had to be done. And across a 45-second gap on that climb was a massive effort. But I think it left a fair bit of sting in the legs. And you got to keep one eye open with all those Slovenians, mate. I think Tratnik rode a very calculated race. Maybe not letting him get back to him, but he certainly outsmarted him in the finish, because I think Ben probably. I was actually waiting for Tratnik to sit on because he had a teammate in the group behind, which actually they didn't need to. They went away very, very clearly. But no, it was an exciting final in the front, and a pretty easy day for the pink jersey behind, finishing with 13 to 14 minutes behind.
And
Whitey, with that ride from Ben, there's obviously a lot of riders from NTT that are on contract rides, so as in trying to search for a contract, and that could have been one of them, wasn't it? It was a good performance from him. Is he a rider that you guys would be interested in looking at for next year?
Look, he's definitely on the market. Him and 100 other guys. Look, unfortunately, we're all locked and loaded. We have 27 riders signed, and we only have 4 changes for 2021. So yeah, unfortunately, we are not in the position to take any more riders. But it's a good ride from Ben, and I think good confidence from him, because he did 2 years ago of the Giro 2018. He really came on the scene with a very impressive ride. I think he was still in like 10th or 11th place with 3 days to go in the Giro when he crashed out. And he's been pretty quiet since. And doing a ride like that is certainly not going to hurt his cause from getting a contract for the future.
Jai Hindley, Whitey, he's still 3rd overall. Do you think he can hold on and take the podium at the end of the Giro?
No, I think because his primary role will be to see Wilco Kelderman win. Look, I wish Jai all the best, and he's been a very, very impressive Giro. But obviously, Sunweb's priority will be to win the race, and Jai's role will be to look. If he keeps having the rides he did 2 days ago, he's in with a chance. But if you look at between 3rd and 9th place, I think there's under a minute, and I would still expect the rider likes of Nibali and Maker, some of those older guys, they will probably handle this last week quite well. And I know, speaking to Gene Bates this morning, the weather is turning a little bit feral. So it's cold. We've got some wet weather coming, and it'll be very, very interesting to see if they can get through all of these stages, and if they do, how dangerous they will become, because we are going high on multiple days in this last week. And 1/3, it was 40% or 50% of all the climbing in the Giro is in the next four days. So there's some massive days. I think 27,000 meters of climbing, and the race will really kick on starting again today. But Jai's had an incredible ride. It'd be great for him to arrive on the podium, but I think his chances will be pretty slim.
Mm. Now, talking about climbing, we had the first day of the Vuelta yesterday. That's the toughest first day of a Grand Tour that I've ever seen. It was a ripper. Yeah,
it's not one you really wanted to ride into. That's for sure. It was. Look at that finish we use every year in the Basque Country, and it's usually the Queen stage of the Basque Country in April. And so for that to be on first day, it was an aggressive stage. You saw some great riders go in the breakaway, which put a lot of pressure on Movistar and Jumbo to control that break. And we already saw some massive splits on stage 1. So a great start for us with Esteban in our front group, finishing 4th. But it was certainly a rude awakening to what's going to be a very compact and intense last Grand Tour of the year.
Yeah. I was going to say, how's Esteban pulled up from the Tour de France?
Yeah, pretty good, mate. He rode the World Championships the week after, had a good ride for Colombia there, and then has basically been recovering. He spent a little bit of time in Andorra after that, and then he was the last week before the Vuelta. He was with Mikel Nieve, who lives in the Basque Country, and they were reconning this first few stages. But he's in a good place, and it'll be interesting to see how long and how his form holds out over the 18 days.
I'll throw one to you from another rider, another team who's obviously a big name, but Chris Froome. It just shows how bad that accident was last year and how long this rehab has been. Do you think that he'll ever be able to get back to? Obviously, Israel are hoping that he does next year, but do you think he'll get back to his best?
Look, one thing with Chris Froome, mentally, he's probably one of the toughest cookies in the bunch, and it won't be a mental issue or lack of commitment that stops him getting back to the level before. But I really think the cards are stacked against him. He's not getting any younger. And, what is it now? 15, 16 months since the crash. He's had a lot of time to get back to training. I think if he can get through the Vuelta, it will certainly help him for the coming season to get that load in the legs. He's had a very minimised race calendar, as a lot of guys have. But I think getting through the Vuelta will help for 2021. But when you see the likes of Nibali, who's this very similar age, who's had nothing go wrong with him over the last couple of years, there's another generation of riders coming. And I think to not only just deal with age, it creeps up on you quickly, but also coming back from such a horrific accident and then having to compete with young guys who have had nothing wrong, who had no limitations to their preparation. I think it's going to be very, very hard. It's been a big investment from Israel to sign him up for the next couple of years, but I think he'll struggle to get back to the form that he was in, dominating the Tour de France for so many years.
Well, it poses a good question, Whitey. Based on the results this year and the surprise up-and-coming youngsters, I mean, how does that change your approach when recruiting riders in future years? Are you looking for more of these young guys coming through on the back of what's happened this year? Yeah,
definitely. I think there's some of the young guys that have come through, the Evenepoels, especially this young Portuguese fella, Almeida, who's leading the Giro. There's some definite freaks coming through, but I also think the mindset of the staff, and I think in the past I've always been quite conservative with the race programs that I've given our young guys, not wanting to burn them out, knowing the fact that in my generation how little sports science was involved in professional cycling, and basically teams would just flog guys, and if they were going good, they'd flog them until they stopped going good. And I think our approach was very conservative. But I think now with the training available, with the knowledge available, and the amount of race days that these guys don't do, that I think you can probably put certain riders and give certain guys more opportunity and be a little bit less afraid of pushing them more.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that
I don't think it's for everyone. I think Evenepoel, Wout van Aert, Van der Poel, these guys are freaks. These guys are once in a generation. Bernal, these guys are once in a generation guys that have all arrived in our sport in the last 2 years. Well, arrived. Matthew Van der Poel was junior world road champion, the best cyclocross rider maybe ever. Wout van Aert has been around in cycling at a very, very high level for a long period of time, but they've just come onto the road together. Evenepoel, well, I have no explanation for him. He's just a freak. The kid was the captain of the under-17 Belgian football national team 3 years ago, and now he's one of the world's best riders. And Bernal as well. He was also a world-class mountain bike rider who turned to road quite recently. But all of those guys coming on the scene within a year, and then obviously the winner of the Tour de France, Pogačar. Again, won Tour de l'Avenir. But which is now the under 25 Tour de France. But I think we can be a little bit more open to giving these guys opportunities in the future.
Mitch Docker raised a pretty good point the other day. He said, given the congestion of the season at the back end, results are getting washed away. Like they're not holding their own. Like, you had a look at Gent Wevelgem fell on the same day as the Giro. Alex Dowser can win a stage at the Giro and not have a contract next year. Do you feel that it's diluted a bit with this congestion at the end of the season, particularly for sponsors?
Well, yes and no. I think it's racing's better. I think that firstly, I think the UCI bit off more than they could chew. I think to have all three Grand Tours in the lengths that they are in, overlapping with all the one-day races. I think, and look, we're 17 days away from pulling it off. So. In the end, it may have worked out quite well, but I think the sponsors are probably happy that we've got so much racing in this period. But I do agree that the racing has been a little bit diluted. But at the end of the day, for people who, especially in Europe, when you're on the same time zone, I think it's been heaven for a lot of people over here. They've been able to watch, switch across from Tour of Flanders to a stage in the Giro, to the Vuelta, to the Giro. There's been a lot of racing on, and if television numbers and ratings are anything to go by, it's been the best ratings ever for cycling in this last 3 months.
And the racing has been sensational. Every race has been brilliant, from the Tour de France to the Giro to all the classics. They've all been amazing bike races.
Yeah, they have, just in a very, very compact period of time. But at the end of the day, everyone here in Europe, we had 3 months at home, and it's put a big stress on the riders and the staff. But it's something we knew we needed to do. But I think it could have been organised a little bit different from the UCI. But at the end of the day, the people who have borne the brunt of the preparation and the testing and making this happen has been the teams. Now, the teams have spent an enormous amount of money on testing their staff going into races, and also monitoring and the logistical movements of having 3 teams on the go at the same time on the same day in 3 different countries. It's been a big ask for the teams, but I think the teams have done a very good job in making it work.
Now, just on the teams, our mate, the boss of the Giro, I can't remember his name. He gives me the irrits. He came out. Yeah, whatever. He came out and said, he points the finger back at the teams for these positive tests and so forth, given that you guys had to leave the Giro. Just keen to hear your thoughts on those comments, Matt.
Oh, look, I think I think the Giro, parts of the Giro could have been organised a little bit differently at the hotels, but it wasn't so different from what we saw at the Tour de France. I think that the people are always scared to criticise the Tour de France because it's the Tour de France. Look, the hotel we stayed at in Sicily at the start of the race, we had 3 or 4 World Tour teams. We had all the RCS staff, and we had a couple of hundred holiday makers, all staying at the same hotel using the same dining area.
Yeah,
not ideal. But also saying that at the Tour de France, there was days at the Tour de France where our staff had to use the same buffets as the general public. Also not ideal. Just the Tour de, that's just we got away with it at the Tour de France. Well, we had one of our chefs return a positive, but at the end of the day, the Tour de France was very lucky, and I think the Giro at the end of the day, there's been a few positives, but a lot of luck goes involved with who's catching the virus and who is not. There were teams at the Giro, and I'm not going to name teams, but it's certainly a lot more relaxed in their COVID protocols than us, and they've got away with nothing. And we had a very strict protocol. And look, even Ineos, who take it to the nth degree, their riders and staff do not even eat in the hotels. The riders have a separate dining area which they eat in, and their staff eat breakfast and dinner in the car park in tents. So they don't even eat in the hotel, and they've had a positive at the Tour and they had a positive at the Giro. So you can do what as much protocols as you can to protect your riders and the staff, but at the end of the day, it's an invisible virus. You only need one person at the hotel to touch something that you touch, and some people obviously seem a lot more susceptible to getting the virus than others. So Simon Yates is our only rider to have gone positive. Yeah, his roommate never returned a positive, and we had 4 staff who had very little contact with Simon to go positive as well. So there's questions that nobody has answers to.
Yep.
You mentioned Sicily, Whitey, and considering that Sicily was supposed to be the start of the Giro for next year, and they just brought that forward because of the start in Hungary was cancelled. I guess there's a level of understanding there that it was a bit of a scramble, wasn't it, just to actually put the thing on and actually get the full length of the race by going to Sicily this year instead of next year anyway. Was it much different once you actually got onto the mainland, though? Were the protocols around the hotels better than they were on those first couple of days?
I think very much case by case. I think even after the first hotel in Sicily, it was different to the next hotel where we were in another part of Sicily. So I don't think it was that the hotel we stayed at then. The difference also is Sicily didn't have so many cases. Maybe they didn't have so many tests. But I know the wearing a mask only became mandatory like the day or two before we arrived at the Giro. So for hotel staff, for the general public, they weren't used to wearing masks. It was something that was very foreign to them. Whereas, in Spain where I live, it's been mandatory since we came out of lockdown. And still, whenever as soon as you leave your house, you have to wear a mask everywhere you go. my kids go to school with masks and they wear masks all day in their lessons. So it's a little bit of different mindset depending on where you are in Europe. But I think it was a very much case by case, because we also had some hotels on the mainland where we had we stay with other teams. We had a totally separate floor for dining, and the staff were wearing their masks everywhere. And then we had another hotel where actually because we had our own chef, that we weren't even allowed to eat in the hotel. So our riders had to eat like Sky do in the car park. And it was a nice night, and the guys ate around the table outside. So it was very much case by case at the hotels. And I think that the Giro, look, the big difference between the Giro organisation and the ASO is money and staff. The amount of staff who work full time at the ASO is in its hundreds, and at the Giro it's not. It's 30 or 40 people working the sporting department, and they're doing the best with the money that they have. But I think that I still think, in general, they did a good job. And like I said before about Ineos, that you can take all the precautions that you want, but you need also a little bit of luck.
So we go into 2021. The virus is still around. We don't have a vaccine, and they want to get racing underway. Knowing what you know now, Whitey, what are the non-negotiables you think when you go to races?
Look, I think I agree with you, Jonesy. I think the racing will continue. I think unlike Victoria, and most of the people in the world are moving on. And sport will continue. Sport will continue in Europe next year. The races will be on like we saw this year. But I think that the non-negotiables, I think probably, if we could afford it, I think the less time, because I think the area that races do let you down is when you are changing multiple hotels, is the hotel staff are not getting COVID tested unless they show symptoms. If they show symptoms, it's too late. So when we're changing hotels every day, the bubble, the so-called bubble, it's a joke, because at the end of the day, when you change hotels, you are entering a new bubble every single day. So I don't know about the idea, and it's only an idea, that when we have these multi-day stage races, to have them more in regions and have a base per region, so we don't change 20 hotels at the Giro next year. That maybe we're doing a region at a time, and we can be a bit more centralised. So you can stay at the same hotel, and you can break less bubbles. I think the classics, for example, when you have one hotel for 3 to 4 weeks, I think that's a very easy area to control, because you have the same hotel staff every day. You have the same, and you're going back to the same restaurant, the same hotel room every day. You're not having new cleaners come in, and we are sanitising our rooms as well. But I think the less interaction you have with the general public, the less chance you have of getting the virus. And look, the virus is changing. Less. I don't know the exact figures for Spain, but no, we went to 28,000 deaths in quite a short period of time. And I know now that the hospital beds are not full. The death rates are very, very minimal, which is great. So the virus is changing, but we are also coming into the winter months now. So it's going to be the virus is not going anywhere anytime soon in Europe.
Yep. We've got some fan comments. We've got the regulars in tonight. Carolyn Harbeck, she says, "G'day, Wendy super fan. Hi guys and Matt." Now, Ian Thomas has a question. He says, "Whitey, new bikes for the team next season. Does that put a lot of pressure on, considering you've had Scott forever?"
Pressure, no. I think Jumbo Visma have been doing pretty well on the old Bianchis the last couple of seasons. I think it's just different. We've got a brand new model of from Bianchi we will be launching a climbing bike with disc brakes. I've only seen photos of. They're still in production now. The plan is to get those to us sooner rather than later, so that our mechanics can build bikes probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and that the guys who do go back to Australia, which is not too many, can have bikes as early as possible to get acquainted to in the off season, so they're ready to go when racing starts in February or January next year.
So the rumours that every Thursday is going to be Throwback Thursday and the team's going to race on steel bikes is not true.
That is not true. That is not true. We are not going back to Steel Bianchis.
Now, this is a comment which could be applicable for Jerry. Would going around in camper vans in a self-sufficient way be one of going forward and limiting interactions in hotels and the like? Remember that year Richie Port had his own camper van? That would be an absolute
Dave Brailsford still does it.
Does he?
Yeah, he was at the Tour de France and the Giro in his own camper van. He doesn't go anywhere near a hotel room, mate. And look, it is a great idea, but and I remember Sky a couple of years ago really wanted to push it with the ASO, because they worked out if you went from finish to start every day and have no hotel in like 8 camper vans with the riders and some staff around them, that you would save a fair bit of travel time. But then, obviously, if the ASO allowed that for Ineos, then they'd open up to everyone, and then all the ideas of security and so on. Anyway, it was kiboshed. But it certainly would limit contact if we had our own camper vans, but it's certainly not feasible at the moment.
Everyone's asking, is Bianchi coming on board as a name sponsor? That's from 3 different people: Jason, Great Divides, and Sam.
That certainly is a question for Jerry, but highly unlikely name sponsor. They're a product sponsor for the next year, but I don't think they'll be a naming sponsor for us.
And this one's for you. If Scott wants to know, John, can you confirm that Dave B, when he's on the podcast?
I can for a while. I think he's having trouble with the door to his camper van. He just can't get out to charge his batteries or something. I don't know what it is.
You will never send a full list of 40 questions to a potential guest again, John.
No,
you should have just brought him on and then hit him with the hard stuff. Yeah. Oh, you're too honest.
Honest.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's have a quick look before you go, Whitey. Let's have a look at stage 17 of the Giro. That is filth. That is an absolute leg snapper.
60 kilometres of climbing in that.
Yeah. And if you look at the stage markets, this is what the punters think. You got Zakarin up there, Kelderman, Jai Hindley, 4th favourite, and the Shark, Pozzovivo, Fools Gang, Almeida. Who do you think will win this stage, Whitey?
None of those guys. Yep. I would expect another big break to sail down the road today.
Okay.
I think there'll be 2 battles. I think a break will go, and Quickstep and Sunweb will be content with it to go. And I think that they've got a great chance to get a breakaway to go to the line. Maybe not as big as yesterday, because there's not so much time. Because at the end of the day, it's such a tough stage. Who wants to ride tempo to control a break on a stage like today? No. I think a break has a great chance, and it'll be interesting because we've had I saw yesterday in the final Almeida give it to the other GC guys and a little kick up to the finish. Love a bit of fight, but he's going to really start to work out how his Grand Tour legs are if they're getting a bit juicy come this afternoon with I think it's 5,000 metres of climbing and 60. Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredibly tough day with another one with the first of 2 very big days in a row.
Yeah. Zakarin is sitting at 31 minutes, which means he might be able to get into the break, but there are 3 descents on that stage, which guarantees that he won't get to the finish in the front.
Yeah, I don't know. That is a very good point. And there might be 60K of climbing, but there's probably just as much descending, which actually puts him in about 2 minutes behind. I don't know why he would be such a favourite, really. He hasn't shown that much to validate that. But actually, another one I'll throw out there is one of the favourites who's not on that list is he's actually coming to the team next year is Tanel Kangat. I think a rider like him who's been potentially, he's been laying low, and I think if he can make his way into the break today, he'll be a good chance too. 56
minutes down he is, so they'll let him go for sure.
Yeah. And look, EF, even though Tanel is coming with us next year, I know that the one thing I have noticed from the Giro, and you'll see it in the Vuelta, is there's a lot of hungry bike riders out there who have not got contracts. And hunger and career-threatening rides or career-enhancing rides certainly make a difference. You've seen some of the rides by guys this year at the Giro. Some of them you guys you've rarely heard of before. and have their biggest wins because they are under the pump for a contract. And I think you'll see that this week at the Giro, and you'll see a hell of a lot of it at the Vuelta, because there's a lot of guys without contracts. We're at the moment we're losing NTT. There's a couple of other teams who'll be scaling down, and there's certainly no teams coming up. So and obviously teams are investing in young guys, which does put a lot of pressure on older guys who haven't performed to get results. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that in this next couple of weeks.
Okay, well, here's a question for you, Whitey. Say you did have another spot and you had unlimited budget. Who of the riders that are available at the moment would you take?
Well, you give me Matthew Van Der Poel or Walt Van Aert any day of the week. Those two are very, very special, and you can win a lot with them from January through to October. But I think,
the riders that don't have a contract.
Yeah, look, I honestly haven't been paying too much attention to the guys who don't have contracts because we've been locked and loaded for a couple of weeks now. Well, actually, even longer.
What about Jay McCarthy? Like, do you think he's going to get picked up for a team next year?
You would think so. He's a class rider, but look at the Vuelta. There's certainly not too many opportunities for someone like Jay. Just the stage is maybe a little bit too hard. All the flat stages will be controlled by Quickstep with Sam Bennett. But look, I hope Jay. I wish Jay all the best. And if he can get a result at the Vuelta, it certainly won't do his chances any harm. But yeah, I would think Bora would still be interested in keeping him. I know that a lot of teams are sort of holding a gun at a lot of people's heads at the moment and just waiting and seeing. Yeah, there's a lot of guys out there who are still looking for a contract.
I got one for you. Who do you think would be interested in, say, someone like Cav for one more season, knowing that he's nowhere near his best and maybe would never win a race again? But if he's willing to do another season, who do you think would be interested? If you guys weren't, of course, but
which rider? Sorry,
Mark Cavendish.
Cav. Well, I know that Patrick Lefevre. I read an article. Patrick Lefevre is saying, his heart says yes, but his wallet says no about Mark.
It's diplomatic.
Yeah, it is. And Patrick doesn't mind the sound of his own voice there. Look, the problem with Mark is. And look, Mark, in all intentions, says he wants to keep racing. But Mark is one of the legends of our sport. But the thing is, he's just not the same sprinter that won that 30 stages of the Tour de France. And I don't see him going back to that level as a sprinter. Does he have another role in the team as a leadership role and guiding some young guys around? Highly likely. So I think teams that are looking for a little bit of leadership in their classics or their sprint group, I think there's a value there with Mark for sure.
All right, well, let's have a quick look at the Vuelta Stage 2. That's another bit of a nasty one, particularly the Cat 1 at the end there. What are you thinking for this one, Whitey?
Well, the telltale factor today is, do Jumbo-Visma want to run a similar template to the Tour de France? And I think if they control the stage and keep the jersey with Roglic, easily answered. But if they let a break sail down the road early, then that will be a very interesting stage, because that will open it up for you could easily see 10 to 15 riders go down the road in that first 30 to 40K today and never be seen again, because it's a flat start and an early climb. But if Jumbo limit the break size to a manageable number, 5 to 10 riders, and start riding tempo, leave them at 3 minutes, well then, I wouldn't be surprised if they just run the similar template. They've got a very strong team. They've got half of their team from the Tour de France at the Vuelta. So Rogic's certainly shown that he's kept the ball rolling, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the similar suspects to yesterday battling it out.
They had 4 riders. Sorry, guys. They had 4 riders from Jumbo in the top 16, with Dumoulin running 16th. For a little while there, George Bennett was in that lead group as well. So there were 3 in the first 9. So they're definitely strong.
Yeah, they have the numbers to control. It'll be very interesting to see if they want to control for the whole race, because it's not easy. It's not easy, and the Vuelta is there's not too many transitional stages in the Vuelta. I suppose today you'd probably call a transitional stage for Vuelta standards. But it's a nasty race. And look, they're going to need a little bit of luck as well, because the whole Vuelta is in the north of Spain. So, look, it's going to be, I know I've got a jumper on at the moment, but it's going to be 27 degrees in the south of Spain here today, later on. But I know they were starting yesterday in 7 degrees, and it could be a wet, cold Vuelta, which makes the life of the team controlling the race even more challenging.
Well, we've got.
I reckon they'll. I reckon Jumbo Visma will let it go today. I don't think they'll try and keep the leader's jersey myself. But geez, I was impressed with Sepp Kuss again yesterday. He carried that form straight on from the Tour. He was very, very impressive in that last climb.
Yeah, no, he's been one of the revelations of this year. Look, he showed last year at the Vuelta, winning a mountain stage, that he's got the stuff. But this year, the way he rode at the Tour de France, some of those stages, and like he was cruising yesterday, controlling that front group and keeping the pace high for Primoz. He's been definitely a very, very good investment from Jumbo Visma over the last couple of years.
Got a couple more questions come in. This from 2247. Will the Aussie Mitchelton-Scott riders return to Oz for the off-season and ride the Tour Down Under? Do you know how many of your guys are looking to come back?
Yeah, not so many. I think 4 at the moment. And a lot of the guys will just stay in Europe this year, just because I think a lot of the guys are pretty much quarantined out. And I don't see the Australian government changing the quarantine laws anytime this decade. So a lot of people aren't really keen on flying back to Australia to spend 2 weeks in a hotel room. So some are. I know some are. There's a couple of guys going back for like Luke Durbridge is going back for his sister's wedding. Lucas Hamilton's on a plane on Friday. Cam Myers going home. But I think that's it. And Alex Edmondson. They're the 4 that I know. And then if Down Under is on, which is looking very, very likely it will be on, there is a charter flight on this that everyone who is riding Down Under will be on, going directly into Adelaide. So that will bring back a few more, depending on our final makeup for the race.
Scooter?
You mentioned Cam Meyer there. Is his willingness to come back connected to the track and for the Olympics next year? Or a slightly different program for the rest of the road guys?
Oh, I think as well. Cam wanted to get home to see his family. That's 1. 2, his involvement in the track program is obviously in Australia. They're not leaving Australia anytime soon. And then once Down Under and Cadel Evans race is confirmed, Cam will be riding both those for us. So he's whether he stays in Andorra or Girona for another month to 6 weeks, or heads back home now after his Giro was stopped early. I think now's a good time to do it. If you're going to have a break and you are motivated to go back, now is the time to do it. But yeah, he's obviously got track in the back of his mind as well, and joining in some certain camps over the Aussie summer.
And 3, all the nightclubs are shut in Girona, so you can't rip it a new one in the offie. So might as well head back.
Only for 2 weeks, Johnny. Only for 2 weeks.
Now, Kingo makes a point, making sure that guys like Tim de Klerk that sit on the front all day are tested more for COVID, as they're likely to be super spreaders, as everyone else is breathing their air for 150K. It's a good point. Well, yeah, Whitey, that was awesome, mate. Have you got anything you want to add, Iffy, Scotty, before we let Whitey go?
No, great to see you, mate. You're looking very well. So, and we'll talk to you again in the next few days.
Yeah, no worries, guys. No, it's been a weird period when you leave a race. It was a big goal for the team to win the Giro, and the preparation we had going in was spot on. Simon dominating Tirreno. We had a really good team, and a team that I know that could have done very well. But we also knew this season, coming back from COVID, that there was always a risk of things going pear-shaped, and it did. And I just hope the guys at the Vuelta stay safe. And the good news is that that our staff that did contract the virus, and Simon Yates, all have very, very minor symptoms, and fingers crossed that they're back healthy very, very soon and back with their families in the next couple of days.
I do have a question for you, Whitey. Michael Matthews a couple of days ago was just talking to us about how he's spent a lot more time talking to his psychologist and the little core group of people that he's worked with for such a long time. Now, he's coming to your team, obviously, for next year. Have you guys had much conversation about the mental health of the riders, coming through what has been a very challenging year, but about to go into an off-season, some may be in or out of quarantine? This is going to be a really tough time for everybody on the planet, but also for these elite athletes. So is there some conversations that you're having with other staff members about how you sort of manage this next few months over mental health for the guys?
Yeah, well, that's something that we'll be touching on when we get to. We've got a camp plan for the 3 days after the Tour of Spain, where at the moment we've got some restrictions in Catalonia with the gatherings, the amount of people you can get into one place. But we will be touching base with all our riders at the end of the season, which is in 2.5 weeks' time. And I think it's a really case by case scenario, because I think some guys handled the lockdown well, because some guys were with their family, they had their support group around them, and other guys really did struggle. Guys who are stuck on their own for 11 weeks in an apartment and could only leave for getting food on the other side of the world. But I think the team has done a really good job of supporting those guys through this year, but I think that doesn't finish. And I think the people who play a very, very important role are the coaches there, and they're the ones who have the daily contact with their athletes. Our coaches are coaching 5 or 6 athletes each, but then also through this whole period, the sports directors and the doctors have been in touch, and the guys know that there is a really good support network for them. But it's also something that you can't force as well. I think that as long as guys know that you have people you can talk to, and they have a team that does care and a management that does care, I think that goes a long way. And I think we've gone through a lot this year as a team, but I think to see the results that we've had, and we're only going to be stronger for it next year when we attempt to go back to some sort of semi-normality in 2021.
Good stuff, mate. Well, we really appreciate you coming on the detour, mate. Well done getting through that weekend lockdown, and we'll have to check in soon and get your take at the pointy end of the Giro.
Yeah, no, it's all going to happen today, and I don't think I've ever watched so much Netflix, put it that way.
Oh, yeah. What do you recommend? Any good shows that you've seen?
One I watched 2 days ago. Well, I was watching, as you know, Jonesy, I don't mind a little bit of sport. So yep. There was plenty of cycling, football, and NFL on the weekend. But I watched a good one with Safe House with Denzel Washington. That was a good one I saw on Netflix on Thursday or Friday.
Yep. I'll have to check it out. He's pretty good, Denzel. Doesn't take any shit.
You've seen the Michael Jordan doco?
Yeah, no, that was really good. And look, I was saying to Jonesy, I'm into my sport, but I certainly didn't know Michael. I knew everyone in the world knows Michael Jordan. And obviously, Jonesy's a mad basketball fan, but I didn't realise how prolific a winner that he actually was. I knew he'd won a few titles and so on, and he was at the face of basketball globally for a decade there. But to watch that documentary, and I watched it obviously when it came out live. They released a couple of episodes, and the next week another couple. And I was watching it as it came out. I loved it. One of the best sports documentaries that I've ever seen.
It's good.
And just
you go down.
Right. The psyche of to be the best. Like, to be the best, you just win at all costs. Just take down your opposition, mind games, and what he used for fuel to get himself fired up. The littlest thing, like a coach that didn't say good day to him at a dinner, he goes, right, that's it. I'm pissed off. I'm going to take him down.
Yeah. One thing from that documentary, I did see a lot of similarities with the mindset there of Michael Jordan and Lance Armstrong. Some very big similarities. And look, Jones, you always like to say, mate, normal people achieve normal things in life, and people like that, and sports stars, and people who are achieving. If it's art or business, no matter what it is, normal people achieve normal things, and I think you've got to have that edge there, and something to make you tick to go that extra mile. And Michael Jordan was certainly a perfect example of that.
Yeah, bloody oath.
What I was going to say, Dan, was it's a whole other conversation, but there's an argument right now between Jordan or LeBron with all the titles that LeBron's won for 3 different clubs.
No, I'd go Jordan. Jordan every day of the week, mate. 6 from 6 and the big dance. So, he's a gun. All right, Whitey. Well, thanks for joining the show, mate. We'll check in again soon. And, always a pleasure. Love having you on the show, buddy.
All right, gents. Good to catch up and speak to you soon.
Good on you, mate.
Cheers, Whitey.
Take it easy. Matthew White, sports director, very knowledgeable guy, gave us some pretty good insights for stage 17 of the Giro and stage 2. We'll get to our tips a bit later on. But, Johnny, it's time to open up your shoulders and do your finest. Mitchelton Waynes.
Look at that wonderful photo. There we are, the Mitchelton Wine Rest, the Mitchelton Hotel, looking out over the river, over the pool and the river.
I have more photos.
He's come good. Yes, that's a great shot.
That's a pool.
Closer up, I was looking out over the pool, and then the Goulburn River swings around the edge there.
Yeah. And these are the rooms. Have a look at the rooms.
Oh, they are sensational. That is 5-star quality. There are special suites as well with a spa. I stayed in one of those a few months back.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the little lounge there. Yes. And as I mentioned, you can experience the history, the beauty and the serenity of the Goulburn Valley. And there is a beautiful Mitchelton Masano. There you go. Lovely drop. Jump into the Muse restaurant. There it's just the edge of it there. That's the bank. That's in Heathcote.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, here's the front entrance. I'm all over the shop now.
That's into the cellar door. That's where you go and pick up your beautiful Mitchelton Heathcote Shiraz.
If you want to get married, I've got some photos for that.
Well, that's one place where you can go, or you can view it out on the banks of the Goulburn River.
You want to roll up in the tinny?
Yeah. That's actually a cooter boat, mate. That's what they call a cooter boat.
Yeah.
Famous little boat, yes. Short for Barracuda boats. Famous.
And you can't forget the amazing art gallery, John.
No, that is down in the catacombs, down in the bottom there. It is an absolutely brilliant Aboriginal art gallery. And of course, that is an amazing Land Rover that's all been painted by one of the famous artists. I think the Land Rover is worth about $10,000, and the artwork around it's worth about $250,000.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive.
That's sensational. Can you bring up the? Can you show us that photo where the two people were in that room in robes? Have you got that there?
This one?
Yeah, that one. Is that like dinner attire appropriate or not? I don't know. What room is that?
They don't judge in the Gambia, mate. You can roll up.
They're just got out of the spa, mate, because you've got
is that what it was?
a magnificent spa where you can quiet the mind, unwind the body, rediscover your balance in a setting of peace and harmony.
Good stuff, John. And I had the photos to back it up. Now it's time for some quick words from our mates at Bike Exchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Great ad. Kingo makes a good point. He said that marriage shot at Mitchell is taking social distancing to a new level. I think he's talking about the one down in the tunnel.
Down the tunnel. It's a lovely shot.
Yeah, it is a lovely shot. Now, Detour DeLorean, it's back, fellas. Here's the intro.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Oh, no. I just realised that the clip that I uploaded, it didn't upload properly. So Detour DeLorean isn't back. Well, I've got a clip. It was Gracie Elvin's last ride yesterday. She's had an amazing career. Mitchelton-Scott did a really good tribute video. So that is definitely uploaded in the system. So let's take a look.
Gracie was super strong on all terrains, but probably perhaps most suited to classic style racing up in Belgium.
Just to see the sun. When I think of Gracie as a rider, I just think the Spring Classics. All of me undone, not so sure yet, but I think that I might. Nothing to you, barely as you know, if the race is hard, she's going to love it.
She's also a really calming presence, off the bike and also in the races. Super calm and really smart tactically.
Yeah, she's a great leader on and off the bike.
Gracie is witty,
Tenacious,
reserved,
Resilient,
powerful,
courageous,
and sleek.
A good lesson I learnt from Gracie was to always pack emergency chocolate.
We wish the best of luck for pathway that she chooses.
Yeah, that was a little tribute to Gracie Alvin. Fantastic career. We'll have to get her on the show. We thought, we won't pester her too much in the days after retirement. She'll be getting smashed with requests, but we'll aim to get her on the show in the next couple of days for sure. Now, I had another clip that was Chavez winning stage 2 of the Vuelta 2015. That hasn't loaded into the system properly, but we will show that tomorrow night. It's when Mike Turner was in the car. What were you going to say, Scooter?
I was just going to shout out also to with Gracie's retirement, Shannon Malseed, Australian road champion 2018. She also hung up the bike only last week. So so another good cyclist from Australia departing from the women's peloton.
Mm-hmm.
Girl.
We had another comment, and it said Froome and Cav are deluded. They've had their day. Both have earned plenty of money. Retire. John Stevens, you're a harsh man. Just call it as you see it. Portia Griffiths, Dan, what did you think about the new interview with Lance Armstrong? I think you're talking about the ESPN doco, the 2-part series. I loved it. The scene that stood out for me the most was when Lance teed off about the contrast in reception to, they welcome George Hincap here in a US and they take him to races, but they exclude me. They took down Pantani in Italy and he ended up dead. But other riders like Basso and that, they invite him back to races. Do you think he has a fair point, Scooter, with all that sort of stuff?
Well, Dan, you and I, we actually spoke about this the other day, didn't we, by chance?
Yeah.
It's interesting because on face value, they've all done the same thing, yet some have been welcomed back and they're working within the TV industry and doing a whole bunch of things. Richard Virenque, you go to the Tour de France and he is a god walking around. Yet we know what he did with the Festina affair. So I understand where Lance is coming from there. The difference is Lance was a prick. Lance was always a prick. And people were quite happy to make sure that he got what he deserved because he was nasty to a lot of people. So it doesn't make it right, what the discrepancy between the way he's treated compared to others. But it certainly makes it easy for people to treat Lance the way Lance gets treated.
Do you agree, Iffy?
Yeah, Lance stuck his finger up to the French, and they've stuck their finger right up his as well.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He's at that age now too. He needs to get a certain part of the body tested regularly, just in case.
Yeah. Got a couple other comments. Peter, great show, boys. Jonesy, when are you getting the backstage pass going again, mate? Well, it's not looking likely with COVID, so maybe in 2024.
I think the backstage pass. Sorry, mate. I think the backstage pass was the inspiration for that. Talking about Netflix, the F1 documentary where they went behind the scenes for 2 seasons, which I found fascinating, and probably because of I reckon they watched the backstage pass a few times.
Well, the thing is you can recreate that concept for any sport, any team. You just need the access and you need the budget and you need the trust from the riders. So if you can replicate that, you look at what they did with the Australian cricket team and give the access, then it changes the game, because what people do is as soon as you form a connection with the athletes, that people go, hang on, they're just like normal people. They still have the same feelings and they have the same, obstacles that they've got to overcome, and they're vulnerable. It's a recipe for success, and you can do it for any sport. You could do that with synchronized swimming if you've got the right characters. You just need the formula. So I'd love to get the opportunity to get back into it again one day, but with COVID, we got to stick to the detour and stick to this. You still get to tell stories on this platform. And on stories, Ben Jensen, Jonesy's tale about the bottle shop on the other podcast was gold. On the Social Distance podcast, we flash back to the year 2001, and we're looking at years better than 2020. We do it every week. And then once we got into 2001, we're like, hang on, this isn't much better than 2020. In fact, we had the whole Rolodex of years to talk about. We didn't really think this one through. And I just shared a story about how I set up Dan Murphy's record and I smashed 189 bottles of De Bordelais Cab Sav when a pallet jack, I was working out the back and a pallet jack took off and knocked the tower over and then I quit. Yeah, so
wasn't on video. That would have been viral.
No, and all you would have heard.
You quit. Instead of another name, you got sacked.
Well, they didn't fight to keep me. Put it that way. It was a mutual agreement.
You beat them to it. You beat them to it. They were just about to. Oh, okay, Dan. Thanks. See ya. Yeah.
Exactly.
Give us your name badge.
So anyway, what do you want to leave us with, boys? Anything before we wrap up?
John, I was asked to mention to you or ask you about because you mentioned the Munich Olympics and Judy Patching the other day, and apparently there was another story that you would spend a lot of time training with the track team on a spare bike or a training bike, and then you may have misplaced your race bike for the road race. Is there a story that you need to tell us about that?
No, that's an exaggeration. It's completely untrue. But they did. It was in a Sun Tour, not at the Olympics, and they hid my bike. And then just before the start, when they realised I hadn't looked for it, they brought it back and gave it to me.
So there was a moment of panic. So you were looking for your bike and realised, was there a moment of panic that you?
No, they walked up and handed me my bike, and I hadn't actually started looking for it. But they thought I would have been panicking for the whole night. They'd hidden it. I hadn't even looked for it.
So that was Tom Maloney, by the way.
Okay.
Sent me a message about that one. Yeah.
Couple of more comments. Scott Davies, Dan, did you get any feedback from other pro teams on the backstage pass? Might have been the inspiration for the Movistar doc on Netflix. We did have a lot of riders that if we did a funny ep or whatever, they would sing out. And I remember the day, it wasn't a backstage, but when we released the AC/DC video, I remember Cav stopped me and said, mate, that was hilarious. Like, well done, good stuff. So they were really good. And then we obviously got other riders involved from time to time. And there was a good camaraderie within the peloton with all that sort of content. And it made other teams go, well, this formula works as well. Kingo, Lance was happy to throw others extra mates and Landis and Hamilton under the bus, and not one got stuck under the 1K to go banner. That's true. And also, what is the frame behind you, Scott? Looks crazy.
Looks crazy. It looks like it was on the roof of a car and I drove into a carport or something, didn't it? No, so that's my frame. It's a Ken Evans I got it. I had it built for me in 1985 for the 1986 season. I was under 19, went to the national championships in Launceston, broke the Australian kilometre time trial record on that frame, and then went to the Junior World Championships. But you can see all the curves in it. It was modelled off Francesco Moser's world hour record bike. Not quite exactly the same, but similar. And I sold it somewhere down the track. A couple of years later, I went into the Institute of Sport the following year. So a lot of my old bikes, I moved on. And then I had a message from Hank Vogels a couple of years ago asking if he sent me a photo, is this your bike? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And apparently someone up on the Sunshine Coast had it in their garage. And then Hank bumped into him somewhere. He contacted me and I said, "Mate, absolutely. I'll buy it back if I can." And it was a bit rusted. It didn't look too great. And I took it down when I was doing the Full Cycle TV show. We did a special piece on Ken Evans. So we went down to Geelong to have a chat to Ken. I took that frame down there to him to show him, the bike that I was able to then reacquire. And it needed a bit of work. And he said, "Hey, leave it with me." So a couple of weeks later, I came back, picked it up, and it was nice, freshly painted. It's in mint condition again, freshly painted, and I'm going to rebuild it as it was back in 1986.
Oh, good on you, Kenny.
Yeah. So that's the Junior Worlds where you went over. That was the bike you made for the kilo and prepared for the road race. Is that right?
Yeah. So Aussie record holder in the kilo went to the Netherlands and spent 6 weeks racing road tours and criteriums. Had a shocker in the time trial, but was the only Australian finisher in the road race. So obviously my preparation for the kilo that year was far better suited to the road race. Technically, I didn't finish the road race because I crashed in the sprint, split my head open, and actually can't remember it. But I was the only Aussie left in the front group.
We've got another comment. This is from the director of the Voice of Cycling, Nicholas Bird. If he needs a backlight,
we're getting technical now.
Oh yeah, look at him.
How's that? Yeah, Nick.
So backlight is you need to light up your backdrop. So you know, if you're going to do this,
there,
John,
what have you've got some wine bottles up there?
Nick Bird is the man behind the Phil Liggett.
I said that. I said that. Were you not listening?
No, I wasn't. I don't listen to you very often.
Hey, we were filmed in that, weren't we, John? But we were put in the cutting room floor.
Oh, you got the lemon and sass. You did the full sit down interview.
No, we just so at that, the same as you. Like on that last day, they did the filming at the Prince Hotel.
No, I sat down for an hour and did a full hour interview, and it's all on the bloody cutting room floor, mate. Didn't make 1 second of it.
Oh,
Nick,
fair enough then.
Sorry, mate, but I fully understand. You've had to make the hard call. Sometimes Johnny is hard to understand. He doesn't have the good face for a doco. So
I made it into the credits at the end.
Yeah.
You thanked me for not being in it.
Perfect.
Unusable material. Some of the language. Yeah.
Final predictions, boys. Who do you like for the stages? Who's going to win the stage of the Giro? Scotty?
Oh, gee.
You reckon breakaway, like Whitey said?
Oh, look, it makes sense. There's still so many hard days to come in this final week. So, you can't imagine the GC guys are going to go hard on that first climb. It's a brute, 21 Ks long. It just depends on who's willing and able. So I'm not even going to put a name out there, mate. I wouldn't have a clue.
I would recommend not to have a bet. I don't often say that. Yep. And
I've got a feeling that
hang on,
a break will get up the road, but the GC race will split apart on that middle climb, and the Somewhere boys will have a couple of main threats out the back and just go for it. And it'll be someone who profiteers off that. One of the, like Gagan Hart did yesterday, it'll be someone like that, someone who'll profiteer off the Somewhere, take the stage, but Kelderman will secure the overall. That's what I think will happen.
Okay.
It's a big one for GC for sure.
For Vuelta, you think the Killer Wasps are going to control it?
No. I think a breakaway for sure.
Hand the jersey over.
They'll have the right tempo, though, won't they? Because they won't want to get. Wouldn't want the gap to be too big. It's only day 2, so the time gaps from yesterday were not massive for some of those guys. So
not to our big guys, but the time gap to a lot of bike riders is 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So there'll be it depends who gets in the break. I mean, if you get some guys who are only 3 or 4 minutes down, they're not going to let them just take the jersey like that, I suppose. But no, I think you'll get a break, stay away.
Yep. So our suggested tips is don't bet on either race. Save your money.
And Depana is on as well, which is now probably Mark Cavendish's last race, perhaps for the season, perhaps for his entire career. We'll wait and see. A nice little thing from it, though, is August Jensen, the Norwegian that was absolutely dropped on his ass in Shelter Prize. He is racing, so hasn't been too ill-affected by that nasty crash, so it's good to see him on the start.
Yeah. Oh, and one other clip you have to look at if you're on social media is Magnus Cort. Remember, Mitch was talking about these interviews he does with himself. They are hilarious. So he wears this cap that says press on it. And then he goes, Magnus, I want to say, how are you going for the Vuelta this year? And he takes the hat off and he leans. He goes, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. And he just interviews himself and just puts the press hat back on. It is hilarious. So check out Magnus Corse's Instagram.
That's too long. That's too long spent in isolation.
Oh, yeah. He's cooked it up. So anyway. All right, boys. Thanks for another great episode. We'll be back again at the same time tomorrow, 7:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. And we will be interviewing the great Sir Dave Browson.